Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're exploring the world of online content.
It's a big world out there.
It is. I'm so glad you're here to guide us. You shared a fantastic summary of Ann Handley and C.C. Chapman's content rules.
A great book, really lays it all out.
Right. And it got me thinking about how much the digital world has changed how businesses connect with everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's not about yelling the loudest anymore.
No, it's not. It feels like it's more about drawing people in.
It really is, providing them with something valuable.
Becoming a go-to source for information.
Exactly. That's where content comes in.
Blogs, videos, ebooks, webinars.
The whole 9 yards. The book actually uses a really interesting example, Pampers. They had this video series, Welcome to Parenthood.
Okay, I've heard of this.
It wasn't really about diapers, though. It was more about, like, the shared experience of being a new parent.
Huh. So they really tapped into that emotional side.
They did, and it worked. People connected with it.
That makes so much sense. But it makes me wonder, how do we find the right content for our audience?
You've hit on a key point. It's not just about creating content, it's about creating the right content. Content that really speaks to the people you want to reach.
And the book talks about finding your unique voice too, right?
Yeah. Ditching that corporate jargon.
Being more conversational.
Exactly. Imagine you're talking to a friend, having coffee.
You wouldn't be all stuffy and formal.
No way. You'd be yourself, relaxed and engaging.
Makes sense. And speaking of being engaging, the book mentions this golfer, Charlie King. He had a blog, The New Rules of Golf.
Oh yeah, Charlie. He was great.
What made his blog work so well?
Well, he didn't take himself too seriously. You know, he brought humor to it, made golf feel less intimidating.
So, even though it was about golf, it was approachable.
Totally. And it really resonated with people, especially beginners. He wasn't talking down to them, more like inviting them in.
That's a good approach. But knowing your audience is obviously crucial too, right?
It is. And there are tools that can help. Websites like Quantast.com offer anonymous data. You can see who's visiting your site, what they're interested in.
So you get a picture of your audience.
Yeah. And then you can use services like Google's AdWords or Word Tracker to see what keywords people are using to search for things in your field.
So it's like a puzzle, putting together data and insights.
It is. And don't forget, you can always just ask your audience.
Directly.
Yeah, through surveys, polls, or even social media, people are usually pretty willing to share their thoughts if they feel heard.
Interesting. The book also talks a lot about social media.
Oh, it's essential these days. It's all about connecting and sharing.
But there are so many platforms.
There are. It can feel overwhelming.
Where do you even start?
My advice: start small, pick a couple of platforms where your target audience hangs out, and really focus on those. You don't have to be everywhere at once.
That's reassuring. And what about this content curation thing? Sharing other people's stuff.
That's a smart strategy. It saves you time and shows you're in the loop.
But isn't it just reposting?
Not if you do it right. The key is to add your own perspective, some commentary, so it's not just mindless sharing.
So add value. I get it.
Yeah.
And the book had that hilarious example with Cisco systems using Santa and the Easter Bunny in their router testimonials.
Oh yeah, that was genius. It was unexpected, memorable, and that's the goal, right? To stand out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially when everyone's vying for attention. And speaking of standing out, the Ford example where they encourage people to share their Mustang stories,
Yeah.
that felt really authentic.
That's the power of user-generated content. It's real people, real experiences. Nothing beats that for building trust and connection.
Makes sense. So say we've got our awesome content, we know our audience, we're active on social media. What's the next step?
We need to make sure that content is easy to share.
Like really easy.
Yeah, think about it. You've put all this effort into creating something great. You want people to spread it far and wide.
Right, share buttons and all that.
Exactly. Make those share buttons prominent. Use services like sharethis.com that link to multiple platforms.
Simplify the whole process.
Exactly. And we need to be mindful of licensing too, how our content can be used.
Setting some ground rules.
You're finding that balance between protecting your work and encouraging sharing.
And then there's Twitter. The book really emphasizes its role in real-time sharing.
Oh, Twitter's built for that. It's all about those quick, impactful messages.
But what makes a tweet truly compelling?
Think about what makes you stop scrolling. It's usually a tweet that's short, punchy, maybe uses a strong verb, asks a question, or even injects a little humor.
So it's about being concise and creative.
Absolutely. And strategic too. Don't forget those hashtags.
Okay, so we're creating, we're sharing, we're being strategic.
Yeah.
But how do we stay organized amidst all this?
That's where the content calendar comes in. It's like your secret weapon.
A calendar just for content.
Yep. Think of it like a roadmap. It keeps you on track, helps you schedule your posts, and make sure you're publishing consistently.
So it's not just a random flurry of content.
No way. It's all planned out. The book provides a great framework for setting goals, too. Daily, weekly, monthly, even quarterly.
So it's about taking that long-term view.
Precisely. And don't forget about repackaging.
And package it.
Yeah, that blog post you wrote. It could be a video, an infographic, a series of social media posts. Give it multiple lives.
That's a smart way to maximize your efforts.
That is. The book talks about Axus, a supply chain company. They tripled their leads by having a really organized content system.
Wow, that's impressive. Proof that a solid strategy works.
Absolutely. And you know, it all boils down to creating content that serves a purpose, content that helps you reach your goals.
That makes sense. But how do we know if all this effort is actually paying off?
We measure. Data is our friend. We need to track things like website traffic, social media engagement, email signups.
So we can see what's working and what's not.
Exactly. And then we adjust our strategy accordingly.
So data-driven decisions.
Yep. And that's where keywords come into play.
Can you remind me about those?
Sure. Think about what people type into Google when they're looking for something. Those are keywords. We need to use those words in our content so people can find us.
So it's about making sure we're speaking the same language as our audience.
Exactly. And the book talks about these things called long-tail keywords, which are longer, more specific phrases.
Like, instead of just searching for chocolate cake, you might search for best chocolate cake recipe with raspberries.
You got it. Those long-tail keywords target people who are further along in their decision-making process. They know exactly what they want.
That's fascinating. So, shifting gears a bit, the book dedicates a whole section to B2B content.
Ah, yes. The world of business to business is a whole different ballgame.
Right, we're not dealing with individual consumers anymore.
No, it's about businesses, committees, longer buying cycles. Their needs are more specific, more complex.
So how do we tailor our content to this B2B audience?
Well, we need to start by really understanding their challenges. What are their pain points? What keeps them up at night?
So it's about digging deeper, doing our research.
Exactly. And remember, in the B2B world, there's usually not just one decision maker.
Right, it's often a whole team or committee.
Exactly. So we need to think about all the different players involved, their individual needs and perspectives.
That makes the content creation process even more complex.
It does, but it's also incredibly interesting. We need to map out those potential questions, concerns, and information needs for each person involved in the decision-making process.
So it's like creating a profile for each stakeholder.
You got it. And the more detailed, the better. It helps us create content that truly resonates with them, content that addresses their specific needs and pain points.
That's a great approach. The book also emphasizes the importance of research in the B2B world. What kind of research are we talking about?
We need to understand how large companies make purchasing decisions. What are their processes? Who are the key influencers? What factors do they consider?
So we need to get inside their heads, see the world from their perspective.
Precisely. And there are resources that can help. Marketing data services like TechTarget provide valuable insights into B2B buying behavior and industry trends. We can also learn a lot from industry reports, case studies, and even interviews with our existing clients.
This is all incredibly helpful. It sounds like B2B content is all about building trust and establishing expertise over time.
Absolutely. It's a longer game, but the principles remain the same. We need to provide value, be helpful, and build relationships. We need to guide potential clients through each stage of their buying journey, from that initial spark of awareness all the way to the final decision.
And I love the example from the book about bundling different types of content for a B2B audience. Combining information worksheets with customer success stories and even webinars into a comprehensive kit for potential clients.
That's a fantastic strategy. It's like giving them a one-stop shop for everything they need to know. It showcases your expertise and builds trust all at the same time.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about understanding our audience, finding our voice, mastering social media, creating a content calendar, using data to track our results, and even tailoring our content for a B2B audience.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in the world of content creation.
I'm definitely feeling inspired. It's clear that creating truly effective content requires a deep understanding of our audience, a strategic approach, and a willingness to adapt and evolve.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And we can't forget the importance of creativity, that human touch.
Like those Cisco testimonials with Santa and the Easter Bunny.
Exactly. They prove that even in the B2B world, it's okay to have a little fun. In fact, sometimes a touch of humor or unexpectedness can be what sets you apart from the competition.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a crucial point. As we've been unpacking all these ideas from content rules, one key takeaway keeps coming back to me.
Oh, I'm curious. What is it?
It's this. Content creation, at its core, is about connecting with your audience on a human level. It's not just about algorithms or keywords or even sales.
You're absolutely right. It's about building relationships, fostering trust, providing genuine value. It's about remembering that there's a real person on the other side of the screen, someone with their own unique needs and experiences.
Like those new parents watching the Pampers videos. They connected with those videos because they felt seen and understood. It wasn't just about diapers. It was about shared emotions and experiences.
That's what makes content truly powerful, when it resonates with people on a deeper level.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a much clearer understanding of what it takes to create content that truly connects.
And I hope it sparks some ideas for you.
It definitely has. But I have to admit, it's also a little daunting. The digital world is so saturated with content. How do we make our message stand out? How do we create something that truly engages people and cuts through the noise?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. But I think it starts with being authentic and passionate about what you create. It's about finding your unique voice, knowing your audience, and crafting content that truly resonates with them.
And never being afraid to experiment.
Exactly. Try new things, have fun, and see what happens.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about, that's for sure.
I'm glad to hear it. It's an ongoing journey, this whole content creation thing. But it's a rewarding one, too.
Absolutely. Thanks for guiding us through it. I've really enjoyed exploring these ideas with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And for those of you listening, keep learning, keep creating, and keep connecting. Until next time.
So we were just talking about how to tailor content for a B2B audience, and you mentioned guiding them through the buying journey.
Right. It's not like they just decide to buy a huge software system on a whim.
Not usually, no.
It takes time, consideration.
But different people are involved in the process.
Exactly. So we need to think about what kind of content will resonate with them at each stage.
That makes sense. So how do we do that? What does that actually look like?
Well, it's about mapping your content to the different phases of the customer journey. You know, from the initial awareness stage where they're just realizing they have a problem.
To like actually considering different solutions.
Right. And then finally making a decision. So for example, in that early awareness phase, you might create content that highlights common challenges businesses face.
Blog posts, infographics, that kind of thing.
Exactly. You want to grab their attention, make them think, hey, that's me. They're talking about my problem.
And then as they move into the consideration phase,
that's where you start showcasing your expertise. You could offer webinars, case studies, white papers.
things that demonstrate how you've helped other businesses overcome similar challenges.
Precisely. You're building credibility, showing them you have the solutions they need.
And then finally, the decision stage.
Now they're ready to make a choice. So this is where you provide the nitty-gritty details. Product demos, pricing information, testimonials.
So they can make an informed decision.
Exactly. And remember, we can always repackage content from earlier stages to fit these later phases.
Oh, right. Like that white paper we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You could turn that into a series of social media posts or even a short video.
There you go. Get more mileage out of the content you've already created. The book gave a great example of this with a company that bundled together worksheets, customer success stories, and webinars into a kit for prospective clients.
That's smart. It's like giving them a one-stop shop for everything they need to know.
Exactly. It shows that you're thinking about their needs, anticipating their questions.
It builds that trust and positions you as a helpful resource. This deep dive has been so helpful. I feel like I'm finally starting to grasp all the different facets of content creation.
It's definitely a lot to take in, but you're doing great.
It's just, you know, in a world with so much content already out there, it can feel a little overwhelming. How do we make sure our message breaks through?
I hear you. It's a common concern. But I think it comes down to a few key things.
Like what?
Being authentic, being passionate about what you're creating, and genuinely wanting to help your audience.
So it's not just about pushing a product or service.
No. It's about building relationships, fostering trust. Remember the Pampers example?
Yeah, they really tapped into the emotional side of parenthood.
Right. They weren't just selling diapers. They were offering support, understanding, a sense of community. And that's what people connected with.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Content isn't just about words on a page or images on a screen.
It's about connection. It's about reaching out and touching someone's heart, their mind.
And making them feel something.
Exactly, making them think, making them feel, making them act.
This has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you for sharing your expertise with me.
My pleasure. I'm always happy to talk about content.
It's clearly something you're passionate about.
It is. And the best part is it's a constantly evolving field. There's always something new to learn, something new to try.
That's exciting. And a little bit daunting.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
One step at a time. Start by defining your goals, understanding your audience, and finding your unique voice. And remember, it's okay to experiment. Try new things, see what works, and most importantly, have fun along the way.
Those are great words of advice. Thanks again for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure. And to everyone listening, keep creating, keep connecting, and we'll see you next time.
Wow, it's amazing how much goes into creating really effective content. We've barely scratched the surface.
Right, it's a whole world unto itself.
And it's constantly evolving too. There's always something new to learn.
That's what keeps it interesting, though.
It does. But out of everything we've talked about, what stands out to you is the most important thing?
That's a good question. I think for me, it all boils down to connection. At its core, content is about connecting with people.
Making them feel something.
Exactly. And not just any feeling, it's about fostering trust, building relationships.
Like we were talking about with Pampers.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't just selling diapers, they were creating a community.
They tapped into the emotional side of things.
He did. And that's what resonated with people.
It's powerful stuff.
It is. And honestly, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this whole deep dive.
Yeah, you're right.
Content isn't just about pushing information out there.
It's about making people feel seen and heard.
Exactly. There's a real person on the other side of that screen reading your blog post, watching your video.
Someone with their own hopes and dreams, their own challenges.
And when you can connect with them on that level, that's when the magic happens.
It's inspiring, but also a little daunting, right? How do we stand out in this sea of content?
That's the challenge, for sure. But I think a big part of it is just being genuine.
Being yourself, being passionate about what you're creating.
Exactly. Let that passion shine through and people will notice.
And be helpful.
Always. Don't just talk at your audience, talk with them.
Offer value, answer their questions, be a resource.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Try new things, see what works.
Sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places.
True. Like those Cisco testimonials with Santa and the Easter Bunny.
They were so out there, but they worked.
They did. Because they were memorable, they sparked conversation.
That's what we're all aiming for, right? To create content that people will remember and share.
Absolutely. And, at the end of the day, content creation is a journey.
It's about learning and growing along the way.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep creating, and most importantly, have fun.
That's great advice. Thanks again for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a blast.
The pleasure was all mine. And to all our listeners out there, keep those creative juices flowing. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.